In a small, forgotten town, nestled between rolling hills and dense woods, whispers of the past lingered in the air like a chilling fog. The townsfolk often spoke of the old cemetery at the edge of the woods, where the ground seemed to shift and shadows moved without a source. Legend had it that the spirits of those buried there roamed at night, seeking vengeance for the wrongs done to them in life. One fateful evening, a group of curious teenagers, drawn by tales of the supernatural, decided to venture into the woods. Armed with flashlights and bravado, they dared each other to enter the cemetery after dark, believing they could conquer their fears. As they crossed into the shadowy expanse, an unnatural stillness enveloped them, the air thick with tension. The trees loomed like sentinels, their branches reaching out like skeletal fingers. The deeper they ventured, the more uneasy they became, as if unseen eyes were watching their every move. Suddenly, a rustling in the underbrush sent them into a panic. They turned to flee, but it was too late. A cold wind swept through the trees, extinguishing their lights and plunging them into darkness. Heartbeats quickened, and the group huddled together, whispering frantic reassurances. Just then, a soft, mournful wail echoed through the night, sending chills down their spines. It was a sound that spoke of sorrow and loss, a voice that seemed to emerge from the very earth beneath them. With shaking hands, one of the teens dared to shine a dim beam of light toward the source of the sound. There, among the crumbling tombstones, stood a figure, pale and translucent, with hollow eyes that glowed faintly in the darkness. Panic erupted among the group as they turned to run, but the forest had transformed, paths shifted, and the trees closed in around them, trapping them in a labyrinth of despair. As they stumbled through the thickening gloom, the ghostly figure followed, its wail morphing into an anguished scream. Memories of betrayal and pain swirled around them, memories of the lives lost in the town and the injustices that had never been righted. One by one, the teens fell victim to their own fears, the forest preying on their guilt and regrets. It became clear that they were not the hunters in this nightmare, but the hunted, ensnared by the very spirits they had come to mock. The air grew colder, and shadows danced with malevolence, urging them to confront the dark truths they had long ignored. In a desperate attempt to escape, they stumbled upon an ancient tree, its gnarled roots stretching deep into the earth. With the last of their courage, they gathered together, hoping to break the curse that bound them. As they touched the tree, the spirits surrounding them grew restless, their cries a cacophony of anguish and longing. The ground trembled, and the air crackled with energy as the teens confronted their pasts, revealing secrets that had haunted them. With every confession, the spirits began to recede, their cries fading into the night, but it wasn't without a price. One of the teens, burdened with guilt over a tragedy he had caused, felt the pull of the forest more than the others. He realized that he could not leave without facing the consequences of his actions. In a moment of self-sacrifice, he stepped away from the group, allowing the spirits to take him in exchange for the others' freedom. As he vanished into the mist, the remaining friends burst through the trees, gasping for breath, forever marked by the experience. They emerged from the woods at dawn, but the image of their lost friend and the whispers of the ghosts would haunt them for the rest of their lives. Back in the town, life resumed its normal pace, but the teens knew they could never truly escape the dark forest. Each night, as the moon rose high, they could feel the weight of the spirits watching, waiting, and reminding them of the darkness that lay just beyond the edge of the woods. They had become a part of the story, intertwined with the ghosts who lingered in that cursed place, their lives forever changed by one fateful night in the heart of the dark forest. As the weeks turned into months, the remaining friends tried to return to their normal lives, but the shadows of that night clung to them like a second skin. The whispers in the wind would sometimes carry the faint echoes of their lost friend's voice, and the sight of the forest looming at the edge of town was a constant reminder of the price they had paid. The once vibrant colours of autumn seemed muted, as if the forest itself had drained the life from the world around it. Each teen dealt with the trauma differently, but none could escape the guilt that gnawed at their souls. Emma, the most sensitive of the group, began experiencing vivid nightmares that left her drenched in sweat and fear. In her dreams, she saw flashes of the forest, the gnarled tree, the ghostly figure, and the face of their friend, twisted in anguish. Each night, she would wake up screaming, her heart racing, feeling the presence of something dark lurking just beyond her window. Desperate for answers, she sought solace in the town's library, poring over old newspapers and town records, hoping to uncover the truth behind the cemetery and its spirits. Meanwhile, Jake, who had always been the group's jokester, found it harder to mask his grief. He stopped making jokes and started isolating himself from everyone. Friends noticed the change in him, but he brushed them off, convincing himself that laughter would only remind him of their lost companion. Instead, he took to wandering the outskirts of the forest, drawn by an inexplicable pull. He felt as if the trees called to him, urging him to return, to make amends for what had happened that night. Each step he took toward the forest felt like a step closer to some kind of resolution, even as his friends urged him to stay away. On a particularly bleak evening, Emma finally uncovered a series of articles detailing the town's dark past. The cemetery was said to be built over the remains of an ancient village that had been destroyed in a fire, its inhabitants lost to flames and time. Angered by the loss of their lives and the injustice of their stories being forgotten, the spirits of the villagers sought retribution against those who disrespected their resting place. Emma felt a chill wash over her as she pieced together the stories of betrayal and sorrow that echoed through the pages. This knowledge ignited a determination within her to confront the darkness, to seek out the truth behind their friend's sacrifice. She gathered the group, insisting they return to the forest, this time armed with the history she had unearthed. Reluctantly, they agreed, spurred by the notion that perhaps understanding the spirits would allow them to find peace. That evening, under a crescent moon, they ventured back into the shadowy woods, the air thick with tension and unspoken fears. As they approached the old cemetery, the memories of their previous encounter flooded back, making each step feel heavier than the last. Upon reaching the ancient tree, they felt an electric charge in the air, a palpable energy that vibrated through their bodies. They formed a circle around it, the weight of their loss hanging over them like a shroud. Emma, taking a deep breath, spoke first, sharing what she had learned about the villagers and their tragic fate. She urged her friends to voice their regrets and fears, believing that honesty could somehow bridge the gap between the living and the dead. One by one, they began to speak, confessing their fears and the guilt that had haunted them since that night. Jake, his voice trembling, admitted his deep-seated guilt for not being able to save their friend, for letting fear overcome his bravery. As he spoke, he felt a warmth enveloping him, as if the forest was embracing his pain. Each confession seemed to lighten their burdens, the atmosphere around them shifting, the air growing less oppressive. Suddenly, a chilling wind swept through the clearing, rustling the leaves as if urging them to continue. The ghostly figure reappeared, its hollow eyes now filled with an emotion that resembled longing rather than anger. The teens felt a surge of hope. Perhaps this was a chance to make amends. Emma stepped forward, her heart pounding, and offered an apology on behalf of the group for their initial disrespect and for the pain their lost friend had endured. The figure hovered silently, the air around them vibrating with energy. Slowly it raised an ethereal hand, and the earth beneath them trembled. From the depths of the forest, shadows began to coalesce, forming ghostly figures that represented the villagers lost to the fire long ago. The teens gasped as the spirits surrounded them, not with malice, but with a sense of yearning for closure. In that moment, they realized that the forest was not just a place of horror, but a vessel of sorrow seeking recognition. Emma and her friends understood that to honor their friend's sacrifice, they must also honor the lives of those who had been wronged before them. They began to share stories of their lost friend, recounting memories filled with laughter, joy, and the essence of who he was. The spirits listened, their expressions shifting from sorrow to something resembling peace. As dawn began to break, casting a pale light through the trees, the atmosphere transformed. The air grew lighter, the shadows receding as the spirits slowly dissipated into the mist. The ghostly figure smiled, a silent acknowledgement of the teens' bravery and compassion. In that moment, they felt a profound connection, as if the barriers between the living and the dead had momentarily vanished. Emerging from the woods, the friends felt an overwhelming sense of release. They had confronted their fears and the darkness that haunted them, finding solace in the shared experience. The forest, once a place of nightmares, now felt like a sacred ground of remembrance. The weight of loss remained, but with it came a renewed sense of purpose and a deeper understanding of the bonds that connect all souls. In the weeks that followed, they returned to the forest, not in fear, but in honor of their lost friend and the spirits of the villagers. They brought flowers and shared stories, creating a ritual of remembrance that bridged the gap between their worlds. The forest, once shrouded in darkness, slowly began to bloom with life, a testament to the healing power of acceptance and compassion. As time passed, the teens moved forward, their lives forever marked by the experience. They learned that true bravery lies not in conquering fears, but in confronting the shadows within and finding peace amidst the darkness. The forest, now a sanctuary, held their memories, reminding them that even in the depths of despair, hope could flourish and connections could transcend time and space. As the seasons changed, the town buzzed with preparations for the annual harvest festival. The friends, while still grappling with their loss, found solace in the festivities, momentarily distracted from the haunting memories of the forest. Yet, as the festival approached, an unease settled over them like a fog. The nights grew longer, and with them came a strange chill that seemed to seep into their bones. Emma, still tormented by her nightmares, began to notice odd occurrences around town. Shadows flickered in the corners of her vision, and whispers echoed through empty streets. When she shared her concerns with Jake and the others, they dismissed her fears, convincing her that their experiences in the forest were behind them. But deep down, Emma felt an unsettling connection between the dark energy surrounding them and the spirits they had encountered. On the night of the harvest festival, the town was alive with laughter, music, and the scent of roasted corn. But as the festivities unfolded, Emma couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. As the sun dipped below the horizon, a dense fog rolled in from the woods, enveloping the town in an eerie silence. The vibrant colours of the festival faded into muted tones, and a sense of dread hung in the air. As darkness fell, the lights began to flicker, and the music warped into an unsettling melody. The townsfolk, once carefree, grew uneasy, their laughter turning to nervous chatter. Emma, feeling the weight of an unseen force, urged her friends to leave the festival and return to the forest. She believed that the spirits were restless, and their anger might spill over into the town if not addressed. Reluctantly, the group made their way to the forest, the path illuminated only by the flickering lights of their flashlights. As they entered the woods, the familiar chill crept back into their bones. The trees seemed to twist and turn, their branches clawing at the sky, and the air thickened with an oppressive energy. Emma felt an urgent pull toward the ancient tree where they had once found peace. When they reached the clearing, the atmosphere felt different, charged with a dark intensity. The ghostly figure emerged from the shadows, but this time it was joined by other spirits, their faces twisted in rage and despair. Emma's heart raced as she realized they were the spirits of those lost in the fire, and they had come to reclaim what had been taken from them: recognition, justice, and closure. The spirits surrounded the teens, their mournful wails echoing through the forest. Emma stepped forward, her voice trembling as she pleaded for understanding. "We honored you. We remembered your stories," she cried, but the spirits were unmoved, their anger palpable. They pointed toward the town, and Emma understood they wanted acknowledgement of their suffering from the very people who had long since forgotten them. Suddenly, the ground beneath them began to tremble, and the trees swayed violently as if responding to the spirit's fury. A blinding flash of light erupted from the ancient tree, and the friends were thrown back, landing in a tangle of limbs on the forest floor. When they looked up, they found themselves in a different time of vision of the village before the fire. They witnessed the villagers' lives, their laughter, their love, their dreams. The fire that consumed them wasn't just a tragedy, it was a betrayal, the result of greed and corruption from those in power. Emma realized that the spirits had chosen this moment to show them the truth, to make them understand the depth of their pain. As the vision faded, the spirits became more agitated, their cries growing louder. The friends, shaken but determined, realized they needed to act. They had to confront the injustices that had silenced these souls for so long. Emma led the group in a chant, calling upon the spirits to share their stories with the town, to expose the truth behind their deaths. Suddenly, a dark figure materialized at the edge of the clearing, a malevolent presence that had lingered in the shadows, feeding off the pain and sorrow of the spirits. It was a manifestation of the anger and resentment that had festered in the town since the village's demise. The friends felt its icy grip tightening around their hearts, urging them to flee. But Emma stood firm, her voice unwavering. "We won't let you take them anymore," she shouted, drawing strength from her friends. Together, they formed a circle, their hands joined tightly as they focused on the spirits. "You are not forgotten. Your stories will be told," they chanted louder, their voices resonating through the trees. The dark figure roared in fury, a tempest of shadows swirling around them. But as the friends continued to chant, the energy shifted. The spirits, emboldened by their words, began to rise, their forms glowing with ethereal light. They surged forward, confronting the darkness with their own light, pushing back against the malevolent force that sought to claim them. In a climactic clash, the dark figure disintegrated, releasing a wave of energy that washed over the clearing. The spirits erupted in a cacophony of joy and sorrow, their voices mingling in a harmonious melody that echoed through the woods. As the dawn broke, the friends watched in awe as the spirits transformed, their anguished faces softening into peaceful smiles. With the malevolent presence vanquished, the ancient tree stood tall and proud, its branches shimmering with a new light. The friends had not only freed the spirits but had also reclaimed the connection to the past that had long been severed. They understood now that the forest, once a place of fear, had become a sanctuary of remembrance. Emerging from the woods, the friends were greeted by the townsfolk, who had gathered at the edge of the forest, drawn by the commotion. Emma stepped forward, her heart racing as she shared the stories of the villagers, the truth behind the fire, and the importance of honoring those who had been lost. The townspeople listened in stunned silence, their expressions shifting from disbelief to understanding. As the sun rose higher in the sky, casting warm light on the town, a sense of renewal washed over everyone. The scars of the past began to heal as the teens and townsfolk came together to honor the memory of the lost villagers. A memorial was erected at the edge of the forest, a place where stories could be shared and spirits could be remembered. From that day forward, the forest thrived, a testament to the power of compassion, acknowledgement, and connection. The teens, forever changed by their experiences, continued to return to the forest, not with fear, but with reverence. They had forged a bond not only with each other but with the spirits who had shown them the way, reminding them that even in darkness, light could emerge and healing could begin. As the sun dipped low in the sky, casting golden hues through the branches, the town gathered at the memorial erected at the edge of the forest. The atmosphere was one of quiet reverence, a shared understanding that had blossomed from the darkness they had faced. Emma, Jake, and their friends stood at the forefront, their hearts swelling with a mixture of sorrow and hope. The townsfolk, once skeptical, now listened intently as Emma spoke. Her voice was steady, carrying the weight of the stories she had unearthed, the histories that had been buried beneath years of silence. These villagers were our past. Their lives mattered, and it's time we remember them, she urged, glancing at the memorial, a simple stone structure adorned with flowers, candles, and photographs of the lost souls. As she spoke, the air around them seemed to shift, the gentle rustle of leaves echoing the villagers' presence. A soft wind swept through the clearing, and for a moment, the friends felt a warmth enveloping them, as if the spirits were there, standing with them in solidarity. Jake stepped forward, holding a small lantern he had brought along, its flickering flames symbolizing the light they would carry forward. "We'll keep their memories alive," he promised, his voice thick with emotion. "Not just today, but every day. We'll tell their stories, share their joys, and honor their pain. They deserve that." The townsfolk nodded, their faces a mixture of gratitude and recognition as they lit candles in remembrance, placing them gently at the base of the memorial. As night fell, the gathering transformed into a vigil, a sea of flickering lights illuminating the clearing. Emma and her friends moved through the crowd, listening as others began to share their own connections to the villagers, stories that had been lost or forgotten. Laughter mingled with tears, and for the first time, the community felt whole, a tapestry of lives woven together through shared history. Suddenly, a soft glow emerged from the forest. The friends turned, eyes wide, as they witnessed a series of lights dancing among the trees, an ethereal procession of spirits making their way to the clearing. Gasps rippled through the crowd as the villagers appeared, their forms shimmering softly, no longer bound by the sorrow of their past. They smiled, radiant and free, their presence a testament to the healing that had taken place. Emma stepped closer, her heart racing. "Thank you for showing us your truth," she whispered, her voice barely above a breath. The spirits nodded, their glowing faces radiating warmth and gratitude. They encircled the memorial, and as they did, the air shimmered with an energy that felt both comforting and uplifting. The townsfolk watched in awe as the spirits began to dance, a celebration of life and freedom. Laughter erupted from the crowd, a joyful acknowledgement of the connection that had been forged. The friends felt a surge of hope, realizing that this was not an end but a beginning, a promise to keep the stories alive and to ensure that the past would never be forgotten again. As the festivities continued, the friends joined hands, feeling the bond that had strengthened through their shared experiences. The laughter of the villagers mingled with the voices of the living, a symphony of remembrance that echoed through the night. The forest, once shrouded in darkness, now glowed with life and light, a sanctuary for both the living and the spirits who had found their peace. In that moment, they understood the true meaning of healing. It was not merely about confronting fears or righting wrongs, it was about connection between the past and the present, the living and the dead. And as the stars twinkled above, a new chapter began, one filled with hope, remembrance, and the promise that the bonds forged in the dark would always lead them back to the light.